Today, we're going to tackle a pretty bold claim, one that you hear in studios and from music fans all over the world, that James DeWitt Yancey, aka Jay Dilla, isn't just a great beatmaker, he's maybe the greatest of all time. So let's really break down why.
In it, to really get a sense of Dilla's importance, you just have to look at this. This was his main tool, his instrument, the Akai MPC 3000 sampler. And it's not sitting in some collector's basement. No, it's in the Smithsonian. It's being preserved as a foundational piece of music history. That tells you right away, his gear isn't just gear, it's a historical artifact. And that respect isn't just in a museum. It is alive and breathing in the work of today's biggest artists. I mean, when someone like Kanye West says Dilla is the standard he holds himself to, well, that tells you everything. Dilla's not just an influence. For a lot of people, he's a conscience, a benchmark for what truly pushes music forward. And from a rapper's perspective, Busta Rhymes just hits the nail on the head here. A Dilla beat wasn't just some background noise, it was a whole world, fully formed. The feel, the mix, the emotion, it was all there. His productions were so complete, they created this perfect pocket for an artist to just step into and do their thing.
So, what was the secret sauce? What made his beats feel so different, so legendary? Well, it wasn't just one thing, not by a long shot. It was this incredible mix of game-changing techniques and a musical soul that, honestly, completely rewired how we even hear rhythm. Let's break down the core pillars of his genius. All right, first up, we've got to talk about his most famous contribution, the one that really changed everything, his rhythm. People call it Dilla time, and it felt like he had somehow found the ghost, the human soul, living inside the cold, perfect circuits of a drum machine. Now, to get what he did, you first have to understand what he didn't do. For years, producers used this thing called quantization. Just think of it like a magnet that pulls every drum hit, every note, onto a perfect, computer-precise grid. It keeps everything neat and tidy, sure, but it could also suck all the life out of a beat, making it feel stiff, kind of robotic. And you can really see the difference here. On the left, that's the standard. Everything perfectly locked in, totally rigid. But on the right, that's Dilla. His beats are loose, they sway. They feel beautifully, humanly imperfect. The kick drum might lag just a little bit, the snare might rush ahead, and right there, in that imperfection, he found a whole new kind of groove. I absolutely love this quote from Questlove because it just perfectly captures that feeling of hearing Dilla's drums for the very first time. It was a total shock to the system, a real rule-breaking moment. You could just hear the freedom in it. And for a whole generation of musicians, it was like he was giving them permission to be imperfect, to be human. And that's really the heart of it, right? He took a machine that was built for perfect precision, and he deliberately made it imprecise. He would play the drum patterns in by hand, on the pads, leaving in all those little stumbles and shifts you get from a real performance. He basically taught the machine how to feel. Okay, so his rhythm was revolutionary, but that was only half the story. The other half? Dilla was an absolute alchemist when it came to sampling. He didn't just find sounds and loop them, he completely transformed them, turning these forgotten little musical moments into pure gold. His whole process was, it was almost like a ritual. He had this massive, perfectly organized record collection, and he wouldn't just drop the needle looking for an obvious hook. No, he'd listen to entire albums, patiently, waiting for that one tiny buried moment. A stray guitar note, a single drum hit that almost anybody else would just miss. He was like a musical archaeologist. This is a perfect illustration of his genius. So take his track, Don't Cry. Most producers would have just sampled the main melody from the original song by the Escorts, but Dilla did something way more complex. He totally ignored the melody. Instead, he hunted through the entire song for every single kick and snare hit, and he chopped them out, one by one. Then he took those tiny individual sounds and reassembled them like puzzle pieces into this completely new, absolutely beautiful rhythm. It's just incredible. And Questlove's puzzle analogy here is just, it's perfect. What Dilla was doing was so incredibly complex, almost like microscopic surgery on sound. But the final result? It sounded completely effortless, like it was always meant to be that way. You can't hear the seams. That was his magic. And this all leads us to the emotional heart of the Jay Dilla story, the album that really cemented his legend, his final masterpiece, Donuts. And believe me, the story behind how it was made is just as powerful as the music itself. The context here is just, it's staggering and heartbreaking. Dilla was in a hospital bed, battling a terminal illness. His mother brought him a portable turntable and a sampler, and right there, from that bed, he created his magnum opus. The album came out on his birthday, and just 3 days later, he was gone. It was literally his final gift to the world.
The album itself is structured in this really unique way. It's 31 short tracks, and most of them are barely a minute long. They feel like these beautiful fragmented memories. It's almost like you're scanning through the radio stations of his life, catching these powerful, emotional little bits just before they fade out. But here's the truly brilliant part, the thing that ties it all together. The very last sound of the final track flows seamlessly into the very first sound of the opening track. It's a perfect, infinite loop. An album with no real beginning and no end. Just like a donut, it's a circle. A powerful metaphor for life, death, and rebirth. So it's no surprise, right? Donuts was immediately hailed as a masterpiece. It completely redefined what an instrumental album could even be. This wasn't just a beat tape. It was a deeply personal, conceptual work of art that told this incredible story without a single lyric. So even though his life was cut so tragically short, Dilla's impact is just immeasurable. And honestly, it continues to grow every single day. His legacy is one that just keeps on giving. I mean, you can draw a straight line from Dilla's sound to some of the biggest artists today, from Kendrick Lamar to Flying Lotus. And that whole lo-fi hip-hop movement, that global phenomenon of study beats, that is built almost entirely on the foundation that he laid. His beats are still so vital that huge artists, from Drake to Nas, are still using them today. His influence isn't a memory, it's an active force. And his influence isn't just in the studio anymore. It's actually moved into the classroom. Seriously, academics now write papers and teach entire college courses on his work. Musicologists compare his production techniques to the complex orchestrations of classical composers, studying his use of rhythm and texture with that same level of seriousness. And that's really what it all comes down to. Dilla elevated his instrument. He didn't just use the MPC, he channeled his very soul through it. In his hands, a sampler became like Jimmy's guitar or Coltrane's saxophone, a direct line for pure, raw human expression. It was truly an extension of himself.
And that is the ultimate legacy Dilla leaves us with. He took the cold, rigid world of a machine and he forced it to feel, to swing, to be beautifully, perfectly imperfect. And that leaves us with this huge question. If one person could teach a machine to have a soul, what are the true limits of music? Dilla showed us that maybe, just maybe, they don't exist at all.